everybody. Welcome to Gabby Dizon. He's a co-founder of Yield Guild. Today, we're going to talk about NFTs and NFTs' role in the emerging world of decentralized finance, or DeFi. But before we begin, we want to first learn a lot about Gabby. So Gabby, tell us kind of, a little bit about you, your background, and how you got into blockchain.
Sure. So I'm based in Manila in the Philippines and have been a game developer for the last 18 years. I started a mobile game studio in 2014 out of Manila, and we were making casual games for mobile devices, Android and iOS devices. And in 2017, we heard about blockchain and Ethereum specifically, and we started playing with Ethereum to see how smart contracts could potentially affect the game industry. And it was from there that we heard about non-fungible tokens via CryptoKitties. And yeah, that was really the start of my journey. I really dove headfirst into NFTs, started making our own game called Battle Racers. I started playing Axie Infinity on October 2018 when I got invited by one of the founders, Jiho, and sent me 3 Axies. And yeah, I've been really just very deep in the NFT space since then.
No, that's great. So you've been a game developer for decades. What I want to know about is what was that first experience like? Your first transaction on Ethereum? Like, what was the user experience like for you coming from the game world, coming from the gaming world? Was that kind of hard to get used to?
Yeah, so I think almost everyone just gets exposed to crypto via trading first. I was no exception. So he started via buying these tokens on exchanges, buying and selling them, and then learning to store them on a wallet. And then from that experience, then you discover MetaMask, which enables smart contract transaction. It's a very different experience connecting to a website, being able to kind of sign a transaction and submit a transaction. So it's really fascinating just to kind of wrap your head up around the difference of what does it mean when I'm actually sending a transaction out of my wallet to a website and then record something on chain. So that was actually a really fun experience.
Yeah, I remember, so I got into blockchain kind of mid to late 2016. And I remember having to go to an exchange, connect my bank, buy crypto with fiat, and then move my crypto to my MetaMask wallet, and then do some interactions with MetaMask. And just the whole concept was kind of a kludgy kind of user experience. But because gaming has been so focused on the user experience, making it very easy for onboarding, I imagine that was probably frustrating. And how has kind of gaming, you'll probably talk about this in a minute, but I'm curious about, you mentioned Axie Infinity, like what is that onboarding like now for users, given that it's the backend is on the blockchain?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Axie is that the onboarding is actually not that simple. You're using 2 wallets, MetaMask and Ronin, Axie's own wallet. And with Ronin, you can actually come in via credit card. So there's a way to onboard without MetaMask. But like just the power of games and play to earn in that, even with, I would say, an inefficient onboarding experience, the value that it brings to the user base is so good, it's so high that people are willing to learn and kind of jump through the hoops. And I fully believe that these UX kind of experiences will really smooth out over time. It'll be easy. But Axie showed that they focused first on the value proposition rather than the onboarding. A lot of people are trying to do it the other way around. They feel like if you hide crypto, focus on the UX, hide the wallet, the users will come. But if you hide it too much, like there's nothing that really differentiates your crypto experience from a regular Web2 experience. So I think you have to show the value first. Like what are people getting from having crypto in their application? And what Axie showed was that you can earn crypto via playing games. You don't have to buy it. And that is such a strong proposition that even though the onboarding is not that easy, people are still really kind of coming in droves to it.
That's a really fascinating insight, because you're exactly right. I mean, the way I've been thinking about it is let's create a smoother onboarding experience, but even if the onboarding experience isn't smooth and then people find the value, they're willing to put up with it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I mean, we've seen that with Axie Infinity, and the growth numbers are staggering. What, maybe could you share a little bit about the growth numbers, and which are really fascinating, especially since the onboarding isn't very smooth.
Yeah, so what's really interesting to me is that Axie has hit 1 million daily active users now, up
Wow.
from, I would say, 15,000 in January. Yeah, they've done over $1 billion in marketplace transactions lifetime. And I would say that most of that has happened in the last 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's done really insane. A lot of the beneficiaries and the players are here in the Philippines, especially in the rural areas where lives are being changed en masse by people really just playing the game and earning the equivalent of like 4 or 5 times minimum wage. So the effect is really so powerful, and especially if you see it up close here.
That's amazing. You know, you've touched on the lives that have been changed. Maybe we could back up a little bit. So there's this new category. You used it, play to earn. Maybe tell us a little bit about what play to earn is, how that's different from kind of the current worldview of gaming, and
Sure.
and how, you know, we'll talk about this shortly, but I would love to also learn about how the virality started in Cabanatuan City. Like what was that like? I wish I were there to like watch the first player and how it moved from like one person to 10 to 30 to like that sounds fascinating. Anyway, so yeah, please tell us what play to earn is. For our audience that might not be familiar with Axie Infinity, what exactly how people earn, that would
Yeah.
be interesting.
So play to earn is this new category in the middle of crypto and gaming, wherein you play a game and then you earn a reward for winning something in the game. And that reward can be synced to the blockchain as a token, right? So for example, in Axie, I use these NFTs called Axies. They're digital pets with different characteristics. And I go to battle against other Axie trainers. And when I win a match in the arena, I get a certain amount of SLP. Now, this SLP is a resource that is used when you breed two axes to create a new one. So if I wanted to create new axes, and the Sky Mavis team, the developers, they don't have any axes themselves. If you want to play the game, you need at least 3 axes to play. And the ones that are selling them to you are the breeders. So the breeders are the ones that breed 2 new axes to create a new one. Now you need 3 axes to play. So if you're coming in as a new player, I need to buy 3 axes from somebody, and you buy them from other players, not from the company or the game developer. So that's what gives the SLP token its value. It's created when people win games. It is burned as a cost when people breed to create new ones. And because it costs money to buy an Axie, and the seller makes money from it, that means they're willing to pay a certain amount of money to buy the SLP from the players who are farming it, right? Because they need it as a component, as an ingredient to create new axes. So this is kind of the crux of play to earn, in that you're generating in-game resources that other people find useful and are willing to pay for. So there becomes this kind of circular economy within the game, that people are creating things and people are buying them.
Wow, that is fascinating. And so tell us about the insight that you got that started the Scholar program, which I think was the start of, hey, there's something here, which then led to Yield Guild.
Yeah, so this was actually happening around this time last year. So during the early part of the lockdown, a lot of Filipinos, in Cabanatuan City in the northern Philippines, which is a very rural area, they were locked down, laid off, like no money, getting really desperate and searching for ways to make money online. And they found out about Axie Infinity, so they downloaded the game, started playing, learned how to use a wallet, learned how to use MetaMask, swapped SLP tokens for Ether, and eventually cashed out Ether to fiat. And at the end of that journey, they realized that they made far more money doing this than the jobs that they were laid off from. So that was really the start of it. And Axie, I think, had less than 5,000 players then at this time last year. And it just started growing because this person who made the money posted on Facebook, even found out like the 1,000 peso bills that he earned and say, I earned this from playing a game. And then that's how the initial virality happened. A lot of it was actually via Facebook groups. And a lot of people started coming in and wanting to buy Axie so that they can also earn money. And because I was one of the top breeders of the game at that time, I actually owned close to 1,000 Axies at some point. I started selling Axies to a lot of these newcomers. If they couldn't afford it, I just gave them the Axies and told them, pay me when you can. And to my surprise, 3 weeks later, they'd pay me like the entire amount. And the rest of the money that they played, what they kept for themselves, right? So this was really an amazing experience, like to be part of last year. You really felt like you were playing this game and you were actually touching people's lives. You're improving people's lives because they were able to eat food, put food on the table, provide for their families, pay down their debts. And for a lot of them, basically have excess like savings for the first time in their entire life. So it was really mind-blowing that a game provided this kind of access to the crypto economy to basically very ordinary people around the world, and especially in the Philippines. And the other thing that happened was that people realized that the quirk in the game in that there's two types of logins. There's the kind of username, password, account login, and there's the wallet login where you have to sign a transaction. And the account login meant that I could give you my username and password. You can log into my account, you can access my team and start playing Axie Infinity, but you couldn't run away with the SLP or the Axies because you didn't have private key access. So some people in the community realized that you could use this to pretty much like lend out your Axies to other people. You'd give them their accounts, they would play the game, they would accrue the rewards, and then at the end of a certain period, you just trigger a revenue share and send them a portion of the money that they earned. So this is the start of the scholarship model, and some people in the community started doing that organically. We saw that and said, you know what, maybe we can do this in a scaled up manner with capital, with technology, doing this as a platform. And yeah, that's pretty much how Yield Guild started.
Wow. So tell us about Yield Guild. You guys raised some seed funding and I think a Series A, and then you guys released a token recently. Yeah, tell us about Yield Guild.
Okay.
Our audience would love to hear about it.
So we are what we call a play-to-earn gaming guild. So we are a community of players set up in a DAO structure that invest in NFT assets of different games that have yield, like Axie Infinity. And then we lend out these assets to our player base so that they can play these games, earn some form of rewards, and we do a revenue share on that kind of reward. So that is kind of the basic thing that we do. Most of the earnings right now and the operations are around Axie Infinity. We have 4,700 what we call Axie scholars or players that are playing using our accounts and teams that are managed by 19 independent community managers around the world. So apart from Philippines, we have managers in Indonesia, India, Thailand, also Latin America, like Venezuela, Brazil. And they're the ones that recruit and train these players on the ground so that we can provide Axie scholarships and they can earn some money. Apart from that, we've invested in assets in 11 different games. So games like Zedrun, Guild of Guardians, Ember Sword, Illuvium. So we're always looking for kind of the next game that our players will be interested in.
Gotcha. Now you've said in a couple of tweets that Yield Guild is the DAO of DAOs. And so for our audience that might not know what a DAO is, so a DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It's essentially an organization that is I guess built on rules that are codified in smart contracts. And there's no central organization. It's fully decentralized. And maybe you could speak to what you mean by DAO of DAOs and how big could the Yield Guild get?
Okay, so we're not a company. We're a community that is, I would say, governed by a token from an economic and governance standpoint. But what's different is that we have different sub-DAOs or sub-guilds based on groups of people who are doing different things inside Yield Guild. So the first sub-DAO that we put up was the League of Kingdoms sub-DAO, which contains our land estate in the game League of Kingdoms. So it has its own token YGG which our players bought into, and now they have governance over how to play the game, what to do with the reward. So yeah, so the token is there with that as kind of economic upside, but also governance power with the players. And Yield Guild owns a significant portion of these YGG tokens, but we don't exercise any governance ourselves. It's for our players to do it. And that's how we see ourselves growing over time. Each game community, no matter how small or how big, are probably governing some sort of assets in some NFT game. And we're going to create sub-DAOs out of that so they can be self-governing units that will decide for themselves what to do inside these games.
Gotcha. So there's going to be a YGG ILV, YGG
Axie,
Axie, etc. So I'm a holder of YGG. And I know it's on the roadmap. So if I am very bullish on, let's say, Illuvium, then I could choose to make extra bets on that specific sub-DAO. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So you can take a look at the economics of each specific sub-DAO and say, I think for example, the YGG Sandbox or YGG Illuvium is undervalued. And then I would buy specifically into the token that represents the assets in the sub-DAO instead of just buying the kind of YGG itself. And so for YGG, the kind of main or mother token, it becomes more like an index into the kind of yield-bearing metaverse. So whatever we go into, Yield Guild has exposure to that. But if you wanted, I would say, more specific exposure and governance on a certain game, then you go with one of the sub-DAOs.
I see. I'm glad you mentioned the Sandbox. So the Sandbox and Harmony we're partners, and we're working on maybe I can share a little bit about Harmony. I'm not sure how much you know, but so Harmony is a layer 1 chain. We have one of our value propositions is that we have these multiple trustless bridges to other ecosystems. And so we have a bridge from Ethereum to Harmony, Binance Smart Chain. We're building one to Bitcoin. And so far, our bridge has over $100 million in value locked, meaning that over $100 million has been in assets have been bridged from Ethereum to Harmony, so that people can participate in the Harmony ecosystem. What is Yield Guild's, I guess, approach to multi-chain? Because we view the future as multi-chain. We love Ethereum, but there's going to be other chains that the applications make sense more to build on versus Ethereum. And so Harmony wants to be a key player in that multi-chain world. That's why we're building all these bridges. If a play to earn game were built on Harmony, for example, that meets the criteria that you have for Yield Guild to build a sub-DAO for, is that something like, I guess, what's your approach to the multi-chain world?
So we go where the players are. So a lot of our assets are Ethereum, but for example, our Axies are on the Ronin side chain of Axie Infinity. Our Ember Sword lands are on Polygon. Our Splinterland assets are on BSC. So yeah, we go where the players are.
Gotcha. I like that. Now, how do you deal with tokens that are not ERC20? So Harmony is not ERC20 or HRC20. So how does that work with I guess practically with the sub-DAO, since if a play to earn game were built on Harmony, then it would earn the HRC20 version of whatever the token is. How would that accrue value to, I guess, how do you deal with governance in that case, since it's on a different chain?
Yeah, so we're only seeing somewhat mature governance ecosystems on Ethereum right now. I think it's harder to kind of build out that stack outside of Ethereum. So what would probably happen is that we'd use some kind of bridge or locking to lock and to bridge over some of those assets to Ethereum, and then mint those tokens over a sub-DAO. That is kind of, I think, the approach that makes most sense at this point, because we're like, DAO tooling itself is still very new and still, I would say, evolving at this point. And most of the tooling that's available lives on Ethereum. So we would have to bridge the tokens to Ethereum to create a SubDAO, and that would be governed over there, even if the assets were on another chain.
Yeah.
And like later on, I think the DAO tooling will go multi-chain as well, but I think it has to be mature on Ethereum first before it kind of propagate it elsewhere.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And it's really this whole multi-chain multi-chain world is kind of creating new problems. Something that we're seeing now that we have an Aave proposal. And so one of the big questions is like, okay, if Aave is deployed in Harmony, how will governance work? Sushi is on Harmony. We have 94 million in TVL on Sushi on Harmony. And so the same thing there, it's like, how would governance work since Sushi is deployed on multiple chains and liquidity is fragmented across all of these chains. So it's creating some new problems, but also opportunities. I think you're right about governance too. It's like, it's getting more mature on Ethereum, and that's kind of where it's starting. And I'm looking forward to the time when governance works across chains. That's going to be super interesting. No, this is great, Gabby. I tell us more about, there's a documentary, the Play to Earn documentary. Maybe if you would tell the audience a couple of stories of how like real people, non-crypto native, really not familiar with blockchain, like how Play to Earn has kind of changed their lives. I love the documentary, by the way, because so for the audience, I was born in the Philippines. I was born in Cebu. I love the Philippines, and it was just heartwarming to see. I guess my people, their lives were affected by the blockchain, even though they didn't even know they were interacting with the blockchain. And so I love that. Could you share maybe like one or two stories that I think would resonate with our audience?
Sure. First of all, we commissioned that Play to Earn documentary to tell the story of how Axie Infinity started spreading in Cabanatuan City in the Philippines, which is a rural town, I would say 3 or 4 hours north of Manila. And it's because there's probably a lot of skepticism around Play to Earn. Is it too good to be true? Are these people really earning money? Like, who's paying for that money? Where is this coming from? Is this story all made up? Is it grossly exaggerated? So we wanted to tell the stories like straight from the people who were affected by them. So we sent Leia out of Inforces, and she was the one that first wrote in CoinDesk about this phenomenon in Play to Earn. And that was happening at this time last year. And we were able to tell the stories of people like Art who lost his job and then found, like, he was the first person to find Axie in Cabanatuan, was playing it from an internet cafe, and then kind of he was like the patient zero that spread Axie Infinity all across his town, and then like afterwards the neighboring towns, because they were making so much money. And there was the grandpa, the lolo and lola, or elderly couple over 70 who were manning their own store, the Sari Sari store. And while there was no one there, they were playing Axie and they were using it to pay for their medicine. So there's just really a lot of heartwarming stories when you see that very ordinary people have access to the economic activities, the economic opportunities of blockchain via these NFT-based games.
That's awesome. Now, let's bring it back to Yield Guild. You've said in a couple of podcasts that what's the phrase you use? You said quit driving taxis, play Axies.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell us what that means and what that has to do with Yield Guild.
Yeah, so we are the largest provider of Axie teams, or the scholarship program in the world, with 4,700 now. And we feel like, we've barely gotten started. Like we're covering Philippines, the rest of Southeast Asia, a little bit of India, and a little bit of Latin America. And we're at less than 5,000. We think this should be like in the millions, right? So with what we're doing, we think of it as similar to kind of an Uber for digital assets approach. We want to have as many digital assets, these NFTs, as possible that provide people with the economic access to crypto via these games, and lend them these assets, have them go to work inside these games as a player, as a blacksmith in a game, maybe as an adventurer, as a level designer, as a creator, and have them earn money there. So we want to be kind of the bridge from people to get from like the physical world to the metaverse. Some people call us like we're the employment agency of the metaverse, and yeah, because we provide people with the economic opportunities to get inside these games.
That's awesome. So let's talk about I guess your growth strategy. You've mentioned, I think there's 11 official partnerships or official games that Yield Guild is working with. What is your approach to growing Yield Guild? And I guess maybe walk us through the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, what that looks like.
Okay, so on one hand, we are aggressively investing in acquiring digital assets, these NFTs, that we can use to play games and earn money in these different play-to-earn games. At the same time, we are aggregating users, players from around the world that want to play these games and earn money, and kind of matching those two together. So yeah, we're looking a lot into what new play-to-earn games look like and investing assets in them. And yeah, continuously giving our player base this new options to play.
That's great. Now, if someone were to, I guess, how does one become a member of the guild? And what could a brand new community member do to contribute and become part of it?
Yeah, super easy. Go to our Discord server, discord.gg/ygg. And then, yeah, we have a community around 50,000 strong there, people discussing a lot of different games. That's also where our scholars go and apply and become an Axie scholar for YGG. And then we have a website at yieldguild.io where you can mint your guild badge. That's an NFT that will give you access to different, I would say, quests that people can do inside these partner games in the future that will earn them the YGG token.
Cool. Now let me, maybe we can back up a little bit, and I want to read a tweet that you wrote that I want to kind of double click into. So you said, my 12-year-old started playing Axie for SLP. SLP is Smooth Love Potion in Axie Infinity. Swap SLP to ETH, got the Uni airdrop, used Uni to buy AXS at 12 cents, sold AXS at $48 to buy YGG at $1. Okay, so I kind of want to work for your 12-year-old. Like, tell us. I mean, that's fascinating that he's 12 years old, and he's, I don't know if I'd call him a crypto native, but what he's doing is like what most of us in crypto do every day, which is really fascinating. How'd you get him or her into this?
So it's easy with kids, actually. So I have two kids, they're 10 and 12, and I taught my son how to use MetaMask. My daughter mints crypto art, this NFT art. And yeah, so like for them, with much of their life spent inside Roblox or Minecraft, is actually not just it's not a far leap to kind of figure out what digital money is. I mean, they've been born in the time of Bitcoin and Ethereum, so it's just normal to them. Like, there's no cognitive dissonance around digital money because they're around these things in games all the time. So just layering into that the kind of concepts of scarcity and having kind of real world value, it's a super easy concept for kids to take, much more so than for people who are used to, I would say, physical money.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to make your tweet into an NFT. That's amazing. You put it on a t-shirt. That's so cool. Well, so, speaking to the hackathon participants, like what's, I guess, some of your advice for any of the participants that's interested in creating a play to earn game? Like what advice would you have for them?
So, of course, it depends on the kind of level of skill you have. What I would say is that don't be afraid to play around with the smart contracts, with the NFTs, And even if the gameplay is very simple and rudimentary, it's important to understand how these work. Like the concept of play to earn is, I would say, is very advanced because there were a bunch of things that needed to exist on top of that. So Ethereum had to exist first. Smart contracts had to exist on top of that. And the non-fungible token had to exist on top of that. A DeFi element had to exist on top of that. And you bundle all of these together and you get play to earn, right? So before you get to play to earn, I think you need to understand first kind of the various components that you have underneath.
Gotcha. I remember, so I remember last summer, DeFi summer, right? I started, yield farming Yearn like the first week. And then shortly after that, we all kind of jumped into sushi and then yam and then, so forth and so, but before DeFi summer, I remember I was playing TronBet. I don't know if you're familiar with TronBet. I'm not, I'm not judgmental of any chain, but I was very brand new to Tron, but I heard about this game, right? And so I started playing this game and I was fascinated with the game mechanics. And I really think that a lot of the game mechanics in TronBet we started really inspired a lot of DeFi later on in that summer. And so I love that you talk about how, play to earn really has a lot of these DeFi components in it. And so that's fascinating. Well, Gabby, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and with our audience. And I'm excited for our developers, the hackathon participants, to watch this fireside chat. For everybody, I will share in the show notes Gabby's Twitter handle, as well as the Discord and
the documentary.
And the documentary, absolutely. And anything else that you want to leave off with the audience, Gabby?
No, just if you're interested in play to earn, just be part of the community. Anyone can join, and it's a very, very welcoming community. So yeah, everyone is welcome to join.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gabby. Really appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Bye.